I will not yield, Britain will not yield on our principles and values about the future of Greenland under threats of tariffs. As we engage constructively, I have made my position clear on our principles and values. The first of those is that the future of Greenland is for the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. The second is that threats of tariffs to pressurise allies are completely wrong. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to engage constructively. I've had many international calls in recent days, and the Prime Minister of Denmark is coming to the United Kingdom tomorrow for bilateral talks. But I do want to be clear with the House. I will not yield, Britain will not yield on our principles and values about the future of Greenland under threats of tariffs. And that is my clear position.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. That's his clear position. He will not yield. And as part of that video as well, he spoke very clearly about the pressure that he was feeling and the comments that were made about the Chagos Islands, the Chagos deal, and how it is being used to pull on the thumbscrews. But of course, he will not yield. Yeah, I thought at the time this wasn't going to end very well. And guess what? We have this. Keir Starmer forced to pull Chagos surrender bill after Donald Trump backlash. So despite all the tough Billy Big Bollocks talking there, he's suddenly gone the other way. I can see Prime Minister's question time next week. Kemi Badenoch's going to call that another U-turn. They'll get the mileage out of this. It's all looking ridiculous. So where are we? Major victory for everyone standing against Keir Starmer's disgraceful Chagos surrender. At the end of the day, there's a base out there that, you know, we have the control over. And if you sign away the sovereignty or whatever it happens to be to Mauritius and then lease back that base or the land that base is on, it's costing you billions of pounds every year, which you shouldn't have to pay. And not only that, who's allied with Mauritius? And there's other stuff going on about this Mauritius ally right now. Go and have a look at my friend Graham Moore's channel, the video I did last night, the English Constitution Party. Some very interesting things going on right now that you won't see on the mainstream media. That is the whole point of the YouTube environment. You know, we tell you what's really going on that the mainstream media won't. So Keir Starmer has been compelled to withdraw his Chagos Island bill amid fierce American opposition to the agreement. Well, of course it is. It's about security within that region. And, you know, there is none. There is none if this deal went through. President Donald Trump condemned the Prime Minister's proposal to surrender the Indian Ocean archipelago to Mauritius earlier this week, describing it as an act of great stupidity. The legislation has been scheduled for debate in the House of Lords on Monday, but was postponed on Friday evening. However, it was delayed following a Tory motion tabled on Friday morning urging postponement of ratification to prevent potential violations of international law. They always talk about international law, don't they? Like it's a box of sweets. But what really is the case? It's a question of security. It's a question of superiority, really, in an area where we apparently have an interest. I mean, just to give you an example of what's going on here, if I bring this up, we stick this on the screen here. This is the Chagos archipelago, and you can see that the Maldives form part of that. So it's literally hours and hours and hours away. You can see the Maldives at the top. Now, if I zoom this view out, we get an impression where it is in relation to things. So right down the bottom in the Indian Ocean, and then the UK is right up the top there. So it gives you some indication of the distance involved. And you look at that vast area that's covered there. So it is really quite a launch point for us, for the Americans, and I would say fairly strategic. So it really is a stupid move, to do what they were proposing in the first place. And just as a slight diversion, you can see Greenland up there, and that gives you another indication of where that is compared with everything else. And that's another strategically important area, and that's part of what all this fuss has been, caused over. It really is quite staggering how they can mess around with, established norms. So Keir Starmer has been compelled to withdraw his Chagos Island bill amid fierce American opposition to the agreement. President Donald Trump said it was stupidity, as we've said. However, it was delayed following a motion from the Tory party. Now, that's how, Parliament, that's how government should work. You vote on a bill, you put it through, it goes to the House of Lords, and then it's what the Americans would call ratified, and then goes for royal assent. You would hope that old Charlie, King Charles, would stamp all over it by that point, but he never would. He'd sign it through, wouldn't he? Well, let's continue and have a look at this. Reacting to the news, Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel said this is a major victory for everyone standing against Keir Starmer's disgraceful Chagos surrender. In the face of relentless Conservative pressure, Labour have pulled their shameful bill from Monday's order paper. The deal, which hands British sovereignty and 35 billion quid to an ally of China, should be dropped altogether. The Conservatives will continue to fight the surrender every step of the way. Under Sir Keir's proposed arrangement, Britain would relinquish control of the Chagos archipelago while securing a lease to the Diego Garcia military base. Well, I could predict a situation where that lease on that base would just be completely persona non grata. Once we'd lost overall control of that area, I think that base would have trouble. Now, if you have a look here, there's some key points. The deal, which hands British sovereignty and 35 billion quid to an ally of China. Mauritius is an ally of China, and you're handing over effectively control of large swathes of the Indian Ocean, and it's costing us 35 billion quid for a base that was ours anyway. You can see how ludicrous the whole thing was. I mean, they'll get political mileage out of this. I mean, look at him. The facility, constructed during the 1970s, served as a strategic installation for both Britain and American forces. Now, you can see there quite clearly why the Americans are kicking off about it, because, they get use of this base as well. So, how is it that we're able to do that without the Americans not kicking off? It's absolutely outrageous. I mean, just to show you another thing, let's have a look at this here. Share that instead. We'll put this up on the screen. You can see that picture to the right there. You can see that's some serious military hardware in place. So, there's stuff coming in and out of there all the time. And, that's the area. That's beautiful, doesn't it? And that's an actual overhead view. I mean, it's very important to realize as well that I think it was the late 1960s when this base was built, the people of Diego Garcia area, the Chagosians, had to clear off. So, that's another factor as well. They had to leave, and that's not nice. Not nice. And this deal would have meant that they could never go back either. Right, let's have a look at some more. So we've got Conservatives have argued this transfer would contravene an agreement signed between London and Washington in 1966, according to the Telegraph. That treaty registered with the United Nations the following year, when the territory became British Indian Ocean Territory, explicitly states the Chagos Islands shall remain under United Kingdom sovereignty. Well, this is very important as well, because what you find, and this government that we have in at the moment seems to be quite expert at this, if you look at previous laws, previous legislation, the English Bill of Rights springs to mind straight away. The English Act of Settlement springs to mind straight away. There are things in place which are there to protect the people, to protect our security, to protect our sovereignty. And successive governments are taking little bits out of these previous laws, these previous acts, and shitting all over them. There's no other way to put it, really, other than that. And then you'll find that they run roughshod and they can do what they like. For example, the English Bill of Rights, there's 2 lines in the English Bill of Rights, which basically mean that none of it can be touched by anybody, any government. It's a protection of the state, and they were illegally repealed. You know, there's a certain hierarchy in law as well, where certain things have to be said before other stuff, and none of it happens anymore. They just run roughshod over literally everything. The courts are a joke. The judicial system is a joke. The government's a joke, and they haven't got a clue what they're doing. They really haven't. You know, I'm just a working class taxi driver. I can work it all out. Ministers acknowledged in late December that discussions with the United States about amending 60-year accord were underway, although the negotiations remain incomplete. Again, you can see a good picture of the islands there, and you can see where the base is. So it's quite a concern. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, declared the agreement could not progress while this issue remains unsolved. Well, if they can keep that issue in the public eye, or at least in the forefront of everything that's going on, hopefully they can stop this from happening. He added, throughout the Chagos debates, Keir Starmer has tried to hide behind the cover of international law. Now the Conservatives are exposing that his shameful surrender may be illegal. Previously, Dame Pretty launched a scathing attack on the PM's judgment. So here we go. He is happy to hand over British sovereign territory and 35 billion quid of taxpayers' money. You're a joke complaining about how taxpayers' money is being used, but there you go, to an ally of China, even if it conflicts with international law. As a lawyer, he should know better. Well, he was a human rights lawyer, wasn't he? But his desire to appease Beijing clouds his judgment, as we saw with this decision to approve the Chinese spy hub super embassy this week. That's another thing, you know, right on our doorstep. And remember the cables. The government has maintained reaching an agreement with Mauritius is essential for security purposes and would prevent an expensive legal dispute over the territory. But what you were doing basically then was surrendering. You were surrendering the territory through fear of expensive legal disputes. At the end of the day, it's got, you know, bugger off. There's an agreement in place. It's ours. You're not having it. End of story. And let's not start about the China embassy right in the middle of London next to a sensitive data cable area. I mean, what the hell's going on? Keir has cited a non-binding 2019 International Court of Justice ruling that determined Britain should hand sovereignty of the islands to Mauritius. So what do you take notice of? 66 or that's non-binding? Baroness Chapman, the Foreign Office Minister, stated in December the agreement between the UK and Mauritius secures the important US military base on Diego Garcia. No, it doesn't. You've effectively handed control over the whole thing to, Mauritius. All right, we got a lease on the base, but it's on an island we no longer have any say over if this deal went through. Key facts. So 1814, the islands became British under the Treaty of Paris and are run from Mauritius. 1965, islands are separated from Mauritius to form British Indian Ocean Territory. 66 to 73, the indigenous Chagosian people removed by force. You know, remember that, removed by force, so Britain can build the military base. In 2000, you know, this is the British here. Remember that. International Court of Justice finds the 65 split from Mauritius was unlawful. That's where the legal wranglings are coming into place. But then you're not considering any deal with the Americans here. That's the thing. UK-Mauritius negotiations begin, and an agreement reached for Mauritius to gain control of the islands, which is obviously now off the table. The agreement was tested at the highest level of the United States security establishment across multiple agencies, and it's been backed by our key allies and international partners, including the US and Five Eyes. Talks are ongoing to update the UK-US exchange of letters on the operation of the Diego Garcia base. Lord Callaghan, Shadow Foreign Secretary, spokesman in the Lords, wrote that Baroness Chapman on Friday, questioning whether the Chagos deal would remain lawful if the 66 treaty stayed unchanged. So, you know, very important thing there, what the effect of current laws has on previous laws and whether you can mess around in the first place, whether there's protections in previous stuff to deal with the situation. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't have happened in the first place, should it, really? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. I just found it funny how he said he wouldn't yield, and within 48 hours he has. There you go. As always, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share my stuff, and I'll talk to you soon. Toodaloo.